Frost Mill Factory, Pennsylvania, 1987. The late shift had ended, and three men, Ethan, Marcus, and Carl, were performing their final inspections in the cavernous, rusted metal halls of the factory. Outside, a dense, ghostly fog enveloped the small industrial town, and light snow blanketed the streets, muffling every sound. Inside, the scent of oil and cold metal lingered in the air, mingling with the faint hum of the dying machinery. Ethan adjusted his gloves as he approached the control panel, Marcus checked the massive gears, and Carl gathered the last tools scattered across the floor. Shadows from the flickering lights danced unnaturally along the walls, elongating and twisting into grotesque shapes. At 11:47 p.m., the lights flickered violently. Ethan froze mid-step as an oppressive silence enveloped the factory. Without a sound, he vanished. Marcus and Carl were left in a sudden, unnatural emptiness, the cold air pressed into their lungs like ice. Only a single footprint remained, quickly fading as if erased by an unseen hand. Panic set in, their voices swallowed by the echoing void. Every corner appeared to warp and shift, shadows stretched toward them like dark, crawling fingers. Frost Mill was no longer merely a factory, it had begun to consume fear, twisting reality around anyone who dared remain. The hum of machinery warped into distant whispers. The faint orange glow of an unexplainable light pulsed at the edge of their vision, calling, tempting, and threatening. Marcus grabbed a flashlight, its beam cutting through the thick, powdery fog of dust and snow that had blown in through broken vents. He and Carl moved cautiously through the factory's enormous corridors. The towering machines loomed like silent, mechanical giants, pipes overhead resembling skeletal fingers scraping against the ceiling. Every step made the floor groan, every shadow seemed to stretch and twitch, behaving independently of the light. Doors remained locked, windows intact, yet some unseen force seemed to press against them, shifting the air and twisting the sense of direction. Carl noticed Ethan's coat draped unnaturally over a conveyor belt, as if moved by an invisible hand. Then, in an instant, Marcus vanished. Carl's scream echoed and was swallowed immediately by the vast emptiness. Alone, Carl felt the oppressive weight of the factory like a living, breathing predator, feeding on fear and anticipation. A low hum, almost like whispered words, resonated through the walls, incomprehensible yet horrifying. He realized that Frost Mill had become a sentient trap. Every shadow, every sound was calculated, waiting for him to falter. His breaths came in short, visible puffs, his heartbeat thundering, echoing through the silent, industrial mausoleum. Hours stretched endlessly as Carl wandered deeper, each step taking him further into the labyrinthine interior. The machinery seemed alive, vibrating slightly with a rhythm that mimicked a heartbeat. Fog swirled unnaturally along the concrete floors, curling around crates and rusted barrels like grasping fingers. Occasionally, he glimpsed indistinct shapes in the mist, dissolving whenever he tried to focus on them. In a dusty office, a notebook lay open, Ethan's hurried, nearly illegible handwriting describing flickering orange lights and disembodied whispers that called his name. Every step produced whispers, every shadow seemed to reach toward him, twisting reality. The air was thick and nearly tangible, pressing against his skin, against his lungs. Carl understood with a cold certainty. Frost Mill was no longer just a building, it had become a predator. Alive. Patient. Feeding on the fear, the confusion, and the lives of those who dared to stay. Every creaking floorboard, every distant clank of metal was a calculated threat. The orange glow appeared again, faint and tantalizing, flickering in rhythm with his racing heartbeat. Midnight arrived. Carl's body was exhausted, his mind fraying under the oppressive weight of Frost Mill. He stumbled through the storage wings, a maze of rusted barrels, abandoned machinery, and toppled shelves. Shadows moved independently, bending in impossible ways under the dim flickering lights. A sudden cold touch grazed his shoulder, invisible, disembodied. The orange glow pulsed again, heart-like, filling him with a sense of inevitability. A message was scrawled in what looked like soot across a wall. "Leave or join them!" His rational mind screamed, but before he could turn, he vanished. Frost Mill returned to an unnatural silence. Ethan, Marcus, and Carl were gone, leaving behind no trace except the lingering sense of dread. The factory had claimed them, reshaping itself into a living entity, a predator with machinery for limbs and shadows for teeth. It was now a warning, a legend, a site of unexplainable disappearances that would haunt the town for generations. Days later, investigators entered the deserted factory. Dust covered the machines, floors were littered with tools and personal belongings, but no bodies were ever found. 3 empty lockers stood as solemn monuments to the vanished men. Years passed. Frost Mill became synonymous with fear in the small town. Whispers of the disappeared spread among locals. Workers refused to enter after dusk. Children learned to fear the fog, the rust, and the shadows. Occasionally, residents reported fleeting glimpses of 3 ghostly figures among the machines, pale faces and gray-streaked beards staring silently before dissolving into the mist. Frost Mill was no longer just a factory, it had become a symbol of the incomprehensible, a predator, a monument to those lost within. Every snowfall, every flicker of light, every groan of the machinery reminded the town that some places are alive in ways no human can understand, and that Frost Mill's memory and hunger endured, patient, eternal, and hungry.